Hi everyone. I'm going to be making what I've decided to call Cortido Americano. Cortido is a Latin American coleslaw sauerkraut kind of dish, and I called it Cortido Americano so that if I do it inauthentically, nobody will blame me. So this is my own version. First, I peeled the carrots. You don't have to peel them; you can just scrub them. But either way. Now it gets interesting when you're trying to figure out how to cut up the cabbage. So the usual plan is you want to cut it in such a way that it won't roll around on your board. So I usually just cut it in half down the middle, or as close to it as I can. This is why you want the big knife, because with a big knife, it's not too hard. A little bit of elbow grease. I think I'm only going to use half of this today, and again, you can slice it up by hand like that, or you can feed it into the food processor, either way. So next, we have the bell peppers. There's a secret to cutting these. So the secret is you cut the ends off and then the seeds come out really easily. So cut one end off, cut the other end off, and then you can just go like that. And seeds are gone. So, and then you can go like that and lay it out flat. And then if you wanted to slice it with a knife, you could just do a little of that and make these nice little matchsticks. But I'm going to just feed it all into the monster here anyway. So then, the stem comes out. So do the same to this guy. And then the seeds just come out. Very painless. And what do we have left? Onions. So the onions, I'll usually cut them down the middle. And then they become easy to peel. Then I'll just peel them. Cut off the ends if there's anything that doesn't look tasty there. I think I'm going to do one jalapeno today because you can always add more, but you can't take it out. So, and this guy, I'm feeding it into this guy, so I don't need to do anything else to it. So now I weighed my bowl ahead of time, so I know how much the bowl weighs. So I'm going to weigh this whole mess. And so the weight of the vegetables is 2 kilograms, 2,000 grams, or about, 4 pounds, give or take. So the ratio of salt, it's important to use about the right amount of salt, because if you use the wrong amount of salt, if you don't use enough salt, then instead of lactofermenting, your vegetables will turn into mush because the wrong bacteria and yeasts and things will find them. If you use too much salt, then it's too salty. So the right amount of salt is about 2% by weight. So the metric system is nice because if it's 2 kilograms of vegetables, then that's 2,000 grams. So 1% would be 20 grams. You just move the decimal point over twice. 1% is 20 grams, 2% is 40 grams. So I need 40 grams of salt. I have my salt here, so I'll do this and I'll measure out 40 grams of salt. There are other ways you can weigh it. You can weigh using pounds and tablespoons and things like that. It doesn't have to be exact, but this is how much salt I'm using for this much vegetable. So it's not a huge amount of salt. So I'm going to start shredding. So obviously it has to fit into the hole in your thing though, right? So feed in some pepper. Feed in a carrot. I'm going to feed in a couple of chunks of our cabbage here.
Oh, gee, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a big cabbage, huh? Do I have to? Right, thank you. I got the vegetables. All of the vegetables except the jalapeno came from Dick's Market Garden right there. And they have beautiful vegetables today. The jalapenos came from Warner Farms down there, who also have great vegetables. So everything I'm using in this came from this market right here, except for the salt, which I brought from home, and which I don't know where it came from. But everything else is very local. And you can, in fact, go buy all of it right after and make this yourself. Okay, so we're full. So it's interesting, lactofermenting, in the old days before they had refrigerators, they needed some way to preserve vegetables over the winter, at least in climates where things didn't grow in the winter. And I'm not sure who came up with it, but it turns out if you put the right amount of salt on your vegetables, then you will get bacteria who will sour the vegetables in such a way that they'll be preserved and they'll be edible. And in fact, the fermented vegetables are actually good for your digestion because the bacteria that help preserve the vegetables are the same ones that live in your intestines and help you digest food. And so eating a little cup of this is like taking a probiotic supplement, except it's tastier and cheaper. And you can make it at home yourself. So the jalapeno, I turned the wheel over so it's going to grate it a little more finely because you don't want a big chunk of jalapeno necessarily. So I'll do that guy. And now I'm going to take the salt. I'm going to sprinkle some of the salt over this. And then I'm going to take the rest of what's in here. Sprinkle the rest of the salt over it. And now, usually what I'll do is I'll mix it up with my hand. And after a few minutes of squeezing the vegetables with the salt, the juice will start to come out of the vegetables. And if you look at this, there's a lot of juice in it. I made this on Sunday, and then I let it sit for 4 days. There's a lot of juice in it, and I didn't add any liquid at all to it. So that's just juice that's been drawn out of the vegetables by the salt through osmosis. And you also notice the volume decreases. So it started out, the bowl was pretty full. Now it's only about half full, and pretty soon I'll be able to stuff it all, I think, in that jar there. There we go. So in we go. And another nice thing about lactofermentation is that when you're doing canning, you have to be really careful of bacteria and sterilizing everything very carefully, because if you have even a tiny amount of contamination when you're canning things, it can lead to problems. Fermentation, because it's acidic, is much less sensitive, so you can use your bare hands, and when it gets pretty full, you really want to pack it in tight. So I brought one of my favorite stuffing tools, which is a kombucha bottle, and I just pack it in and pack the rest in. You want to leave an inch or two of space at the top because it will expand as it sits on your counter, and if it expands too much, it will start to leak spicy juice all over your counter. And it's good too when you use beets or something like that, because then it will stain everything. So this is just about right. That's just about where you want it. Yeah, and you can see the liquid in here because everything is so fresh. I don't know if you can see the liquid in here. I mean, it's so that is it. So now I'm going to put the lid back on. I'm going to put it on my shelf and let it sit for 3 or 4 days. You want to open it every day or two because the pressure will build up, and taste it every few days. When you like the way it tastes, put it in your refrigerator and it will stop souring quickly. It'll get more and more sour the longer you leave it out. If you like the way it tastes, then that's when you put it in the fridge and you're done.